Screenagers, we are back. Welcome to season 3. Welcome to 2024. The Canon is back. We've got the one and only Sailor Monsoon back with us yet again, kicking things off for the new season, kicking things off for the new year. We got another great movie. We got another great season lined up for you. I'm very excited. Sailor, Happy New Year. How are you doing? What's going on, dude?
Everything is good over here in Sailor Land. I do sometimes feel like Bob Belcher in Bob's Burgers, where he's like, "This is the worst year ever," and it's the first week.
Yeah.
But I'm pulling through. You know, we living over here. We're doing stuff, and I'm excited to talk about one of the greatest movies in the history
Yes.
of the medium.
Well, before we get into the movie, one, I just got to agree. We are living, which is always a blessing. We have to be thankful for that. Have to be thankful for being here and doing this in the new year. It's early in the year, so like things seem, at least for me, I know a lot of people poo-poo, the new year and like resolutions and all that stuff and wanting to start off fresh, but I feel like it's always a great opportunity. It's always very exciting to think that, bigger, better, grander things are waiting for you on the other side. So that's how I like to approach the new year. Before we get into, like you said, one of the greatest movies of all time, of course, another essential movie, which is why it's in the canon, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Absolutely amazing movie. Before we get into that, because it is so early in the new year, I thought it'd be kind of fun if we start off with going over any New Year resolutions that we have that are specifically movie related. I don't know if you are a big New Year resolution guy, movie related or in your personal life, but I like to do, some personal ones, but I also like to do some movie specific ones just because it is such a big part of my life. So I feel like it is worthwhile, for me at least, to have some movie related New Year resolutions. Do you have any for yourself, Sailor?
Yes, I actually do. I'm going to, and I'm making this a promise to myself. I have to do it because this has been on my New Year's resolution for a couple years now. One of my big blind spots, and this is embarrassing to admit, I have never seen a single Ozu film. None of them. Floating
What?
Weeds. I haven't seen any of them. Not a single Ozu film. So I'm going to bang out at least the big 5. Whatever the big 5 are, I'm going to watch them.
For those listeners who don't know who Ozu is, give a quick overview, because you say it's embarrassing, but I'm sure there are a lot of people who don't even know. They don't even know who that is.
If you Google the greatest Japanese directors, Akira Kurosawa would be number 1, and then Ozu would be right behind it. And it might flip depending on the list.
Oh,
Yoshihiro Ozu. He has made a lot of melodramas that have the words autumn or spring or winter in the title. Apparently, all of them are great. He is a master of his form. And he is, unfortunately, like I said, a huge blind spot for me. Another blind spot for me, and I have the box set, I'm looking at it right now, the World Cinema Project by Martin Scorsese. He teamed up with the Criterion Collection, and he's been cranking out great, underseen foreign films for decades now. He's been doing this for like 25 years. But Criterion and him finally teamed up to actually release these things on Blu-ray. And again, sad to admit, I haven't watched any of these. I own 3 of these box sets. I haven't watched any of these movies. Don't know what I'm waiting for, but
too many movies, too little time. That's what I always say.
I have Pedro Almodovar box sets. I've only seen one of his movies. I know these are sad blind spots. The Apu trilogy. Haven't seen any of them. Own the box set. I'm looking at it right here. So I'm making I know it's crazy when people hear, like, why would you buy a movie and not watch it? I don't know. We're insane. Cinephiles are crazy. I don't know why we do what we do. But for these rainy days when I have nothing else, or I'm dying of COVID, because it's going to come back, it's going to get us all, I'm eventually going to watch these damn movies. So that's my big one. I'm gonna watch Ozu. For a lot of people who don't know me or never listened to the podcast or never read anything I've written, I used to do a movie a day, where I would watch one movie a day, and I used to review it, but I don't know, that kind of fell by the wayside. But the last year, it kind of fell off for me. Like that was when it's just for whatever reason I fell out of love with movies, or my ADHD cranked up hard, and I just fell into a depression where I just, when I say depression, not like sad depression, but
movie
like
a day is really hard.
It's really hard, and it's when you, and I'm addicted to obscure movies, hidden gems. I'm always looking for those underseen classics because I like putting people on to movies they've never seen before.
Yeah,
and there's a reason some movies are obscure. So when you watch a lot of like god awful movies that might have like one or two good scenes, that wears on you. Or it's the hard schedule to keep up with. So I'm going to try to do 10 movies a month, and at least 5 of those movies they have to be classics. I got to start knocking out some of these movies. I've seen a lot of movies, but there's still so many on my watch list. I mean, Letterboxd, if I actually I might have to make a separate Letterboxd list of the things I want to see, which are all the weird, crazy shit no one's ever heard of, and then all the other things that I know are there, but are embarrassing. If anyone saw, would be like, what is this guy 15? He's never seen this stuff. So, like, Ozu is such a huge blind spot for people who watch movies. Anyone else is like, who the hell is this? I don't know who this is. But he's one of the greats. He's one of the greats.
Yeah.
And there's some Fellini movies, Truffaut movies I've never seen. So I really need to crack down hard this year and really put my feet to the fire to watch these. Right now my microphone is sitting on a Sakamoto. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I'm looking at it. Sakamoto box set. The guy who made Tetsuo the Iron Man. I've only seen that movie. That has all of his movies. Seen it. Never seen A Snake of June. Never seen Tokyo Fist. So, I spent so much money on this box set. I haven't seen any of these movies. Under that box set is, what's his name? The blind dude. Zatoichi. I've only seen like 10 Zatoichi movies. There's like 30.
I don't even know who that is.
Oh, the blind. This is going to be a 4-hour podcast, right? I can't get into Zatoichi, but I recommend them wholeheartedly. Just watch the first one, and you'd be like, "Oh, I got to watch all these." He's a blind traveling Ronin that goes to town to town, and he always ends up saving the town from like a corrupt mob boss or yada yada yada, whatever, like a Mad Max type character where he just wanders into an adventure.
Totally sold.
And because he's blind and he's good. When I tell you this, you're thinking of like a stoic badass that's like, ooh, no, he's fun. He's jolly. He's kind of chubby, but he's the most bad, but he doesn't suffer fools lightly, and he does not like corruption. Like, he always goes immediately to the gambling halls. But because he's blind, he can hear, oh, those dice are loaded. Sneak, boom, his sword comes out. Those dice, you see the little metal ball in the thing. Oh, everyone in the town has to die now because they gamble. It's not. It's not like a bloodbath, like I'm saying it. But yeah, that's essentially what the movies are, and they're great. They're fantastic. So I need to watch some more of those. So I know I'm.
That sounds rad.
There's a lot of movies.
You've got a full list. I love it. You've got
It's a lot.
Full game plan for 2024 movies to watch, but atop that list is watch more Ozu, which I feel like that's a great movie related resolution. I also have not seen any of Ozu's films. A ton of them are on my watch list. The Letterboxd watch list is just like the worst thing in the world because you open it up and you're like, at least for me, I'm like, okay, I have 700 movies here. There's no way I'm going to watch all of these. Every year, there's going to be 20 to 25 new movies that I want to add. There's going to be 25 older movies that I hadn't heard of before that I'm going to add to this watch list. There's going to be 10 things that I had already seen, but I want to revisit that I'm going to add to this watch list. And, next thing you know, first thing you're looking at a 500 movie watch list, and then it skyrockets up to 700. And you're like, I've barely watched anything. And this watch list just keeps growing and I don't know what to do about it. I just, I keep working and doing other stuff and like going on with my life and like seeing family and friends, but I just want to sit around and watch these 700 movies that are on my watch list. So I totally feel your pain. It's a blessing and a curse to be a cinephile, as they say.
Especially when, again, if you've Sailor Monsoon on Letterboxd, if you want to find me, look through my watch list. These are movies I don't even know if you can find legally. These things are insane. The shit that I'm like, there's a Chuck E. Cheese movie on my list on Letterboxd. That's how deep I go into the rabbit hole of like, oh, Chuck E. Cheese made a movie? Didn't know about that. I want to see what's up with. I want to see what up with this rat. What's this rat up to? So, yeah, it's craziness. So, besides, and this could be a quick one. Besides New Year's resolution, since it is the new year, is there any like new movies coming out you're super excited for?
Any new movies that movies in 2024 that I'm excited for? I'm going to be super basic, and this is the only one that I can think of. I'm sure there will be others if I were to look, but really looking forward to the new Dune. There are also still like 15 movies from 2023 that I haven't seen that I'm super excited to see. So there's always stuff to watch. But yeah, so I think my big resolution for this year as it relates to movies is I just want to watch more. I want my movie watching volume to go up. I feel like last year I saw a down year just in terms of the numbers, the stats that I was putting up. They were like rookie numbers, I was watching 10 to 12 movies a month, which for me is just unacceptable. I should be watching 3 to 4 movies a week at minimum. So I need to get back to a point where I'm watching at least 15 to 20 movies per month. And if I can't keep up with those numbers, then I think someone needs to come and officially take my cinephile card away. I'm no longer allowed to even jokingly refer to myself as a cinephile if I'm not hitting at least 15 to 20 movies per month. I feel like that's a fair bar for me to set for myself. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. And it's also, if you focus on quality over quantity, you will still feel like you're getting a healthy diet. When I watched a movie a day, I did that for 10 years. 10 years I did that. August 20th, 2011 is when I started. The first movie I started with was Mamma Mia. It wasn't by my choice, but it is what it is. I like it, but it's not a movie that you're like, ooh, I'm going to start with a classic. It was just like, I watched the movie, then I watched the movie the next day, and I was like, oh, I could do this, so let's do this.
Yeah.
And then I did it. Of those, I'm not going to do math, but it's close to 3,000 movies in that amount of time. Somewhere in there.
Love it.
Because it's not just a movie a day, but that was the minimum, was a movie a day. So of that 3,000, I can tell you maybe 500 were really, really good. And then a lot of them were just average, just slide off your brain, like Teflon movies that are disposable. So even if you're doing 10 a month and those 10 are classics or at least really good movies that you're knocking out, that's fine. You don't have to watch a movie a day because I promise you, half of those are not going to be. You're not going to remember them. You're not going to remember them. So I watched 70 movies in 2023 or 2023 released movies.
You watched 70 that were released within the calendar year of 2023.
Yes,
that's great.
Yes.
That's
It's more than I've ever watched.
Most people probably see like 10. If we're talking about like normal people, if you're talking about like movie people, I would say most people see around 30-ish. if you're talking about like someone who's like super plugged into the industry, then you're talking, 70 new movies a year. So you're like that, you're putting up great numbers. You're putting up,
It's
those are
honestly way more than
all-star
I've ever
MVP
done.
level numbers.
Yeah, but my point was, of those 70, I probably really loved like 5 of them. And I saw
Interesting.
all the. I can't say I saw all of them. Unfortunately, I didn't see
Hmm.
Zone of Interest. Like that one, I missed
Hmm.
somehow. Like there's some big ones. I didn't see Saltburn. But of
Yeah.
the, I saw almost all the big ones. Your Anatomies of a Fall and Dream
Yeah.
Scenarios, Killers of the Flower
Poor
Moon. I saw all the
Things.
big ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh God, I love
Poppy.
Poor Things.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
I will say,
Oppenheimer. I didn't even love that one. Didn't love Killers of the Flower Moon. I didn't love Maestro. Like a lot of these movies didn't hit for me. Poor Things did. Poor Things did, but Barbie did. I love Barbie,
all right,
but
Sailor, what we're gonna do? We're gonna stay on after this recording, and we're gonna talk 2023 movies, because we are at the point of the episode where we need to start getting into some One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, because
that is
that's what
fair.
the
But
people are here for, and
that is
they're
true. That is true.
expecting they're expecting expert analysis from you, and also a little bit of analysis from me that is maybe not as expertly, but it is what it is. Either way, I feel like
You
the
need to stop
resolution.
painting me as this expert because I always let everyone down. It's just I've seen
No,
the movie a lot, and I can draw a parallel from R.P. McMurphy to Jesus real easy. I don't think that makes me an expert, but the parallels are right there.
if you're someone who's watching a movie a day, you probably have it means you're consuming more movies than the average person,
That is true.
even the average cinephile, which means that you have all sorts of references and just sort of like a different sort of bar for understanding movies than most people do, which I think in many ways does make you an expert. But either way, we're here today to talk about One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, a great movie, 1975, directed by Milos Forman and starring Jack Nicholson, of course, and Laurie. Why am I forgetting her name? Help me. Louise
Oh,
Fletcher,
the X.
not
Oh,
Laurie.
Luis. Oh, sorry.
Yes. Along with a great supporting cast, Christopher Lloyd, Danny DeVito, names go on and on. Will Sampson, absolutely stellar movie. We'll just say it right off the bat. One of 3 movies ever to win the so-called Big Five at the Academy Awards: Best Picture, Best Director, Best Screenplay, in this case adapted, Best Actor in a Leading Role, Best Actress in a Leading Role. It swept those 5. It was nominated for like 4 others that it didn't win. Absolutely like seminal piece in cinema history for many reasons, both its performance at the Academy Awards and just how it is as a movie. So, with all that being said, Sailor, I think you mentioned this before mics were on, but this for you is one of your favorite movies, something that you would consider to be one of the best movies of all time. I think you said that you revisit this, what is it, every 6 to 7 years?
Mm-hmm.
So, like we always start, walk me through sort of your first time watching this movie, the first time that you became familiar with this movie, what that was like, and then maybe also sort of walk me through how you feel about this movie on each subsequent rewatch of it.
It's funny, like when I listen to podcasts of people who love films, because I'm not going to say cinephiles anymore. People who love films, like your Drew McWeenies, right? When he did 80s All Over, he has an encyclopedic knowledge of film, and he has like absolute recall, I guess, because he can remember theaters he saw movies in, or if you read Tarantino's book, he could be like, "Oh, I saw this
Mm-hmm.
at the ArcLight Cinemas when I was 7," and I'm like, "I don't even understand how you can remember this. Let alone like that's insane to me." But this is one of the only movies that I can tell you I remember exactly where I was when I saw this thing because I bought it at a flea market. There was a
Hell
pop
yeah.
up flea market, and there was a woman who had basically movies out of her van, kind of, but she had a table of all these movies and TV shows and all these stuff, and I was like, oh, I'm going to spend some money here. I was probably, I want to say 20, when I bought it, maybe mid-20s, somewhere in there. But I think I was like 20, 21, 22, 23, somewhere in there. And I bought a DVD collection of H.R. Puffin stuff, and I bought One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest because I heard about it. I knew it was good. I already knew Jack Nicholson, of course. Was not too familiar with Milos Forman, but I had heard that name. I knew that he was renowned amongst people. So I was like, I got to see this movie. Bought it, and it's one of those movies that changed my life. And I don't say that lightly. Like, there's a lot of movies that mean a lot to me. There's a lot of movies I love. But this is one of those, like a Pulp Fiction, an Annie Hall, an El Topo that I saw that changed, like it unlocked movies for me. Because it was the first time I watched something, but then also saw the other thing underneath that, which is the Jesus analogy. It's a thinly veiled Jesus analog, but once you see it, it's right there. It's as screamingly obvious that this is a Jesus movie as The Green Mile. Like, John Coffey is Jesus Christ. Like, he's even a carpenter, for God's sakes. Like, Stephen King was not being subtle with that movie, but it's a great movie, but he's not being subtle. This one's a little bit more subtle because you're like, oh, once I say he's Jesus, and then you're like, didn't he have sex with an underage girl? Yeah, he did. Not great. But that's what makes this movie great, is that this character is flawed. He's not a perfect man. I don't even know if he is a good man. I don't know. But he is a man. And he is a man that is just trying. And once you have, well, I'll get into the movie later. So I remember seeing the movie, and yes, it like literally unlocked movies for me from then on. And I was like, oh, now I have an analytical mind to this. Because before that, I just watched a movie, and if I liked it, I liked it. If I didn't, I didn't. And that was it. But then now it's like, kind of to backpedal a little bit, my mom, for years and years and years, would always give me shit about why I would watch critics and shit, especially Roger Ebert. Ebert and Roper, Siskel and Ebert, any version of that show. Because she would be like, oh, you didn't like this movie until they said something, or you didn't like Nicolas Cage, but now you do. And it was like, yeah, Mom, my opinions are not stone cold facts. They are malleable. That's what opinions are. Once I get new information, my opinion on something changes. And that I actually had, I know, it's crazy. Like, but it's like, I had to explain it to my mom. I'm like, you watch a movie, and if you like the movie, that's it. You don't think anymore about the movie. You liked it. If you didn't like the movie, you didn't like the movie. Even at a young age, I always wanted to know, all right, why didn't I like this? Everyone seems to love this movie. Why don't I connect to Fargo the way other people do? So let me watch Roger Ebert. Maybe I'm missing something. So I would watch them and be like, oh, they would like Roger Deakins, cinematography, the writing, this, and this. And I'm like, okay, let me watch it again. So for some movies it would work, some movies it wouldn't. But I would always want to expand my movie watching vocabulary, open up my mind to understanding things, to be like, all right, why don't I like this? Why do I like this? And One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, again, was one of those movies that was like, oh, I like this movie, and now I have, this movie is giving me the vocabulary to explain why I like this movie more, and it's the word subtext. I didn't understand what subtext was before this movie. And I know at 2021, you're like, damn, you should pick this up earlier. I was a dumb kid. I'm still a little dumb, but I was super dumb then. So yeah, subtext was not a thing. Pulp Fiction was revolutionary to me because I was like, wait, didn't Vincent Vega die earlier? Now he's alive again? What's going on? Like, telling a movie out of order, mind-blowing to me. Woody Allen talking to the camera in Annie Hall, I was like, whoa, you could do this in a movie? Wild to me. So One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is in that conversation of those movies because it introduced the concept of subtext, which is the movie under the movie. Every great movie should be saying two things at once. That's why I think Schenectady, New York is probably the best movie ever made, because it's 20 things at one time. But we're not talking about that because that ain't in the canon for some reason. But One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is two things at once. You see a movie about a man fighting against oppression, against authoritarianism, but then, like I said, you got the Jesus parallels. So you have two movies for the price of one, and both of those movies are amazing. So, yes, I distinctly remember. And then from there, it made me want to read the book, so I found the book. I went to the library. It took me a minute to read the whole thing because
shout out libraries.
Shout them out. You gotta love them. And we're gonna get into that later, or I guess we can get into it now. But the structure.
Talk about it now. Talk about the structure of the book and sort of how it's different from the movie. So, like, I haven't read the book, but I have read a little bit about the book in, just leading up to this episode. But I feel like it is interesting to go through sort of the differences between the two, and also just for you, sort of how, reading the book after the movie may have reinformed some of how you thought about the movie, and then informed subsequent viewings that you may have had of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. So go through all that stuff now.
Now.
Do it.
Do it, boy.
Go.
From what I can remember, because I only read it once, from what I remember, it's basically the exact same story, except the point of view is different. R.P. McMurphy is the main focal point of the book, but it is told through the perspective of Chief. So Chief is your narrator drawing you into this world. So it's not written in third person where it's like, oh, here's R.P. McMurphy going crazy and shit. No, it's Chief retelling the story about this man and how he freed a lot of people in this asylum, just not in the ways that you would. He saved them, basically. So it's from the point of view of Chief, but all of the details are basically the same. How he introduced poker to them, how Nurse Ratched did this, Billy did that. The prostitutes coming in, the boat trip. Basically, all the beats are the same, but yeah, it's the perspective is different. It's kind of like when you finally read Dracula and you're like, oh, these are it's a diary. That's weird. I didn't know that. That's weird. It's kind of like that. It's the same it's the same story. It's just it's a diary.
Obviously a different format. Yeah.
So the book is amazing. It's very hard when it comes to any adaptation. Whatever you're introduced to first is going to be the thing you love. Like if you watch the Harry Potter movies and then you read the books, you're like, oh, all of this shit is unnecessary. You didn't need any of this. But then when you read the books, you're like, well, where's the stuff with Dobby and all the elves and shit?
Yeah.
So it's. I'm glad that they changed the perspective because I don't think it would have worked, and I think that's why it didn't work on stage, or maybe it did. I don't know how it works on stage, but on the screen, no, I don't think it would have worked if it was Chief, because that's one of the great beauties of the movie is finding out why Chief doesn't talk. Chief does talk. It's just he's never talked because no one's ever talked to him. And that's a beautiful moment in the movie. It doesn't hit as hard in the books because he's been talking the entire damn time. So it's like, well, I know you can talk. You've been talking to me. So
yeah, that moment in the movie is amazing. It had been a while since I had seen this. So like I forgot many of the details, including that. And the way that the reveal is done of Chief being able to hear and talk, of like not being deaf and dumb, is amazing. It's like it's so funny. Like there's such beautiful comedic timing in the way that it's done, and like it is so absolutely unexpected that it just hits. in all of the right ways. It's absolutely perfect, that moment.
And that's another example of Jesus healing the deaf. In another way, it's not the same thing. When I say Jesus, if you've never seen this movie and I keep talking about Jesus, you're expecting Jack Nicholson to come in here as this holy man healing. No, it's more subtle than that. You have to dig a little bit deeper. Yes, Billy is a sad little boy, but he's also Judas in this movie. He doesn't want to be, but that's kind of what his character is. And if you read into the Bible, maybe Judas wasn't that bad of a dude. Maybe he was kind of forced into it. We're not going to get into that because I don't want you to get... This isn't my podcast, and you're going to get hate mail for that shit. So I'm not going to get into that. So, but Billy is the Judas of this character movie.
I like
but
the idea of hate mail coming in like in the form of physical letters.
Oh, yeah. Oh, there's a
Is that how you were...
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That's what you were thinking. Someone is writing a handwritten letter and sending it to my physical home address.
The same people that bitched about Michael Keaton being cast as Batman, they're still alive, and they still have all those letters and that they never mail. So let's just scratch out Michael Keaton and just put your name in there and replace
those letters
Batman
are going to come to me now.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Oh yeah.
Fair
and
enough.
That would be beautiful. Wouldn't that be beautiful? It'd be like getting actual hate mail, and you're like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, that's how you know you've made it. If we start getting hate mail, I would take that. That's a big win for the Canon podcast. That would be a huge win for us.
I would laminate it and frame it and put it on my wall.
I would if I get hate mail at any point this year, I'm going to send champagne to all of the Screenage Wasteland contributors, and we're all going to pop it simultaneously to celebrate the fact that the Canon podcast has officially made it to the point where we're receiving hate mail. And yes, I would 100% get it laminated and framed, and I would put it right above my desk where I'm doing the show right now, and I would look up to it every time that I'm recording, and we would pray at the altar of the hate mail that we receive.
Well, I mean, there's an easy way to do that. It's just invite me on that Thin Red Line episode. The hate mail will just keep on coming. It'll never stop.
Yeah. But in that case, it would be hate mail from me to you.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. You're not wrong there.
Sorry. So, all right, get back to your Jesus analogies, because I feel like you've touched on some of it. But
I mean, there's 12 disciples.
Yeah, for anyone who's watched the movie and maybe wasn't necessarily picking up on that, maybe sort of lay out your argument for why you are reading this as a movie about Jesus and how McMurphy is a Jesus figure. Even though that's like the most. Sorry, before you go into it, the Jesus figure is like the most used tool in literary history and cinema history, for that matter.
It is.
You know why? It is that for good reason, and that's because that story always hits.
It always
hits. Whether it's Harry Potter, whether it's Gandalf, whether it's McMurphy, whether it's Neo, that shit always hits. Always.
If it's maybe not Jesus, it usually does hit. Moses, or they'll combine the two. A lot of Moses too. A lot of Moses. Because Superman basically is Moses and Jesus combined.
I've never really thought about the Moses figure. I'm always worried about the Jesus figure. But either way.
You put a baby in a thing and you send it somewhere, that's Moses, baby. Just saying. That's Moses. Yeah. That's Superman, baby.
Anakin Skywalker. There is no father. I wonder who that could be.
I wonder. Who could it be? But this is a little Jesus. It's Jesus. It's always Jesus. I mean, he was hey, man.
When in doubt, if you're ever doing literary analysis, whether it be for like an actual novel or for a movie, you can, like 9 times out of 10, you can just go with Jesus analogy, and like you'll probably be right.
100%. And always works. As long as it's subtle and you're not overtly hitting it. Like Scorsese loves the Jesus, but it's either literally about Jesus or it's a little bit more subtle, like Boxcar Bertha, where the end gives away what you've been watching this entire time. And you're like, oh, I get what you've been doing. I'm not going to give away the ending of that movie if you haven't seen it. It's not the best
Super bad.
Scorsese, but
What's it about?
wait,
Jesus.
Superbad is about Jesus?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, they
Michael
do
Cera's Jesus.
I mean, Michael Cera is
It's actually
Jesus.
about
I
all
want that on
three.
the shirt.
You've got Abraham, Jesus, and Muhammad in McLovin.
Oh man, if we're not
All right,
getting hate
now
mail
we're gonna
yet,
get hate mail.
there it is. Yeah, bring up
All right,
Muhammad. All right,
you gotta go. Give us your analysis.
All right, like I was saying, all the inmates, well, not inmates, all the cuckoos in the nest, as it were, 12 of them, like the 12 disciples. Who's R.P. McMurphy's best friend? A prostitute. When they're giving out medicine, basically a mass. There's literally a character that gets it like communion, and the party
Yeah.
they throw at the end, Last Supper, and then he dies for our sins. Like if he didn't die, he had to die for the rest of them to live, and he had to take away the power of Nurse Ratched, because the way they're able to play poker at the end is that McMurphy freed them. How did he free them? He took away her power. How did he do that? He took away her voice. She can't talk anymore. That's the only way they're able to do that. If she kept talking, they wouldn't. The ending would not have worked, because they wouldn't. As powerful as he was to them, her power supersedes them. So he had to do that. That cost him his life. So, but he took away her power, and they were able to be free. It's not free like Will Sampson. He's literally free. He escapes. But the rest of them, they have that little bit of freedom, which is the poker. She can't do anything about it because she can't see anything. So he had to die. And like Jesus, might not be the best dude, because Jesus might have killed somebody. Like Moses. Moses killed somebody with a rock. Let us not forget, some of our biblical heroes also have some blood on their hands. They're not perfect people. Jesus yelled at a fig tree because he didn't produce figs fast enough. I'm just saying, not a saint. Like Last Temptation of Christ proved, there's no point in making... to take away the man from the idol does a disservice to both. That's why I love Last Temptation of Christ. It paints Jesus as more than just the man that died. He's a man first, and that's what R.P. McMurphy is. He's a man. He's flawed. Yes, he had sex with an underage woman. Yes, he physically assaults women. Yes, he breaks all the rules, and he's kind of an ass. He's also a veteran. Let's remember that he is a veteran. So there's a duality to this man. He's more complex than just what you read. If you just read his file, you'd be like, yeah, he's a piece of shit, and he should probably be in prison. But as the movie shows, men are multifaceted. You can't paint them. Everyone is a shade of gray, and that's what I love about this movie is. Except for Nurse Ratched. Everyone in this movie is multifaceted except for her. And she is just the truest definition of evil to me.
Interesting.
And it's the banality of evil. It's just going through the motions, doing the job. That's evil.
I've seen some readings that offer her a bit more like depth and complexity, saying that she is not just a force of evil. But I totally understand both readings, where she is just, this overly evil character. She only represents, the evil of institutions and systems that are meant to like oppress people and keep people down. But I also can see I can see the reading where there is some humanity there, and where, maybe in some of the scenes where she's doing group therapy with the guys, or the group what are those sessions called, the where they're all chatting. It's not really therapy, but those sort of like group counseling sessions where I could see both readings where she is just being, pure evil, or where she is just a misguided, person who is part of the bureaucracy and only knows how to like carry out her bureaucratic task. And like maybe does have some humanity, but the way that it comes across, because it's within that system, that bureaucracy, it comes across as like cold and heartless. So I don't know. I'm just sort of not playing devil's advocate, but like I'm playing both sides. Like I hear what you're saying and I get that reading, but I also want to just like shed a light on the other sort of reading of Nurse Ratched. And I feel like both are totally valid. It just depends on how you're watching the movie and sort of what thematic takeaways you're looking to get, which, as I say multiple times on this podcast, that's the beauty of an art form like cinema, is that you can have 5 different people, you can sit them in a room and you can have them watch the same movie, and you have 5 completely different takeaways in terms of what that movie is about, what the characters represent, what one scene means, what another scene means, and all that stuff. And that's why movies like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest are, so amazing, because we can have discussions like this. Sorry to cut you off, but I just wanted to throw that out there.
No, I've
to
seen
Nurse Ratched.
many. Yeah, I've seen many, but it's like Hannah Arendt said about Eichmann during his trials. It's the banality of evil, which is we were doing what we were told. We were doing what we were told. And that is to me the truest. Yes, Hitler is obviously an evil man, but the people who followed him were equally evil. They didn't have the power of Hitler, but they also followed him because they did what they were told. And it's not just that she did what she was told. You can tell she likes it. She likes having that power. And the fact that she likes it means she distorts it to her own benefit. If it wasn't for Billy killing himself, then maybe I could see any interpretation of her. No, but the second he kills himself and then she just goes about business as usual, it snaps in R.P. McMurphy that he's like, oh, this is an evil thing that needs to be wiped from the earth. He wouldn't. He wasn't asked that entire movie, but you see it in his eyes. It clicks into it. He's like, oh, you're awful. You're no good at all. Like I have to erase you. Like these people will never be free from you.
Yeah. In that moment, she kind of flips from just doing the job to actively being malignant towards Billy. Like,
and the fact, and line she's that she personally drops, responsible for it too.
Yeah, right. So we're fully in spoiler territory right now. But the line that she drops that leads to Billy's suicide, when she says that, she knows that she is being a mean person. Like there is no, I am just looking out for your well-being. Where like a lot of the other things that she does throughout the course of the movie, I would argue that she is not really looking out for the best intentions, like the best, like what is in the best interest of the men that she is overseeing within this institution. But it could be argued that she is trying to operate in some sort of in their best interest. When she drops, what would your mother think about this to Billy? Like she knows that she's being an asshole. Yes. She fully knows it. She might not know that it's going to lead to suicide, to him taking his own life, but she knows that she's being a piece of shit when she says that. And I think that's what you're speaking to with McMurphy, like realizing like, oh, this person fully sucks in like the worst ways. Like this person is evil.
If this is a comedy, if you view it, and it's not, but I'm saying if you just change this a little bit and you make this like an Animal House where R.P. McMurphy is played by Belushi and he's rebelling, and Nurse Ratched is played by
I'd watch that movie.
John Vernon, and it's basically Animal House. Yes, you could see this movie as a comedy, and you look at the John Vernon type from Animal House. He's just an asshole. Yes, but he's an asshole who's dealing with worse assholes. So you understand from John Vernon's plight, like he's like, God damn it, you got your double secret probation. Like you guys are assholes, and I can't deal with it. These are human beings that have a mental disability. They are the weakest of society. They're right next to the elderly. They need all the help they can get, and she's not helping them. She likes having the power over these things. John Vernon is just dealing with assholes. She's not dealing with assholes. Yes, she's bumping up against McMurphy, and that's, I don't want to say the fun of the movie, but their interactions are great. Watching two actors go back and forth, because she never yells. She's always stoic. Because I think that's how it works. Like, if she actually yelled back, then yes, she would be more of an evil character, right? If they cast a Betty Davis or somebody who is a bigger actress, that would go, no, she looks them dead in the eyes with those dead eyes and tells them what's going to happen. Like there's flat emotions. That's why I don't think the TV show that no one watched but me worked. Because I'm like, it doesn't work if you're dialing it up one way or the other, where she's like, oh, more conniving, or if she's more crazy, or if she's more evil. It's the perfect line. And she got the Oscar for a reason. It's an amazing performance, because she's doing on the surface so little. Because Nicholson takes all the air out of the room. It's a huge performance, great performance. But it's a huge one where you're like, of course the Academy is going to award this, because it's like in your face. It's one of those great performances, but it's in your fucking face. She's not in your face. She's in the background. You always see her. You'll always see her, but it's calm, reserved, and that's the best kind of performances, where they slowly get under your skin. They slowly stay with you, because we've seen a lot of quote-unquote evil characters. Your Darth Vaders, or Jokers, or Anton Chigurhs from No Country for Old Men. And it's people killing people or have these master plans. And I'm going to go back to I hate to keep repeating phrases and shit, but this is the best example, or one of the best examples I've seen, of the banality. I mean, you could say help me, the Nazi and Inglourious Bastards.
Yes.
Although,
what's his name?
No, what is it?
Hans Landa. No.
Thank you.
Right?
I was like, maybe? I know it's a Star Wars thing. Hans Landa.
Yes.
You take Han Solo and Lando Calrissian. You combine them.
Hans Landa. I've never thought about that. That's hilarious.
That's the first thing I thought of. But then when I saw the movie, I was like, yeah, I don't think about this shit anymore. You could argue he's not evil. He's doing his job. Like he says at the end, he's like, I'm a detective. I'm a detective. I'm good at hunting people. So of course I'd work with the Nazis and hunt Jews and shit. I mean,
Sailor, I feel like you brought up a few things that I think are very interesting, and I want to sort of quickly dive into, but before you keep going. The first one is the Netflix prequel series for Nurse Ratched. I watched this movie on Netflix, and then that came up as like, if you like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, you might also like this show. I had no idea that it existed, and I just thought to myself, like, what are we doing? There are many times, throughout a given week where I see some new show that has either been greenlit or is actively on a streaming service, and I just think to myself, like, we have way too much content. There's no need for there to be a Nurse Ratched prequel series. Like, who was asking for this? There's no doubt in my mind that it offers no additional context to what we see in this movie. Like, you watch this movie, you watch that performance from Louise Fletcher, you totally understand that character and everything that she is about. And you don't walk away saying, I would like to know more about her. Let's explore that a little bit more, because what we got on screen for the last 2 hours, that's not enough. I don't have enough insight about that character. Like, what the hell are we doing? So I know this is supposed to be a very positive podcast where we talk about why we love movies, but what the hell are we doing?
Oh, we can drag Ryan Murphy, the man. I don't know what deal he made with the devil that he has 75 fucking TV shows on at any given moment. And the fact is, I like the ones I like a lot are the one reason why I keep coming back to him. And I'm like, fucking goddamn it. Like, am I going to get the O.J. Simpson one? Because I love that one, that miniseries. Or am I going to get more American Horror Story? And I'm going to say it splits the difference. It's not horrible. Like, Sarah Paulson is great, and there's a lot of great actors in it. If Vincent D'Onofrio means something to you, he's in it, and he's great. But, I mean, it's wholly unnecessary because that's the problem with prequels. I'm not learning anything new about her. I know exactly what's going to happen to her by the end of it. So it's like, what's the point? Like that new.
Is there like a scene where they show her like getting her like her little nurse hat? You know, I feel like that's always a big deal in prequels when someone gets the iconic like, costuming that they wear. Like she picks it up and like and dusts it off and then puts it on her head, and like that's the closing shot of the series is like her finally becoming a nurse, and it's like, oh shit, she's about to go fuck up, Danny DeVito's day. Let's go.
It's such a bizarre concept because it's like, how did she get to power? How is that? What? Like Hans Landa, going back to him, and then I'll drop that thread. But yes, that would be interesting. How did he become the Jew hunter? That would be interesting because we literally don't know anything about him. He hunts Jews. Yeah. That's all we know. So
I still think it would be not so interesting, but it would be more interesting than this one.
Yeah, but there's room to explore. There's nothing about this character that says, man, I want to know how she gets to this position and how many people did she poison and kill along the way? Because, yeah, she's a murderer in the show. So it's so soap opera-y. It's Ryan Murphy. It's just, I can talk 4 hours I can talk about that show more than I can talk about the movie because it's like, my God, why?
Instead of talking for 4 hours about that series, the other thing that you brought up that I thought was kind of interesting is whether or not this movie is a comedy. And I feel like I saw a decent amount of reviews that argue that this can be read in some sort of comedic sense. And every time that I've watched this movie or thought about this movie, the last time that I was watching it for this particular episode, there was never, yes, there are a few moments that are kind of lighthearted, but I never once read this as a comedy, a dark comedy, a satire, even. Like, where do you stand on that? Do you get that reading? Is it something that you've ever, thought about? Like, have you ever thought about this movie as a comedy? Where do you stand on that?
No, absolutely not. I think the people who are responding to that just find Nicholson's character so delightful in his antics that they just, I guess they draw the parallel from that to it being a comedy, but you're supposed to enjoy those moments. Like when he's being like, cause there's no TV and it describes the baseball scene. It's like a home run and he's having fun with the boys. Yeah, you're supposed to enjoy that moment, but you're not supposed to, it's not a guffaw, laugh a minute rib splitter. I don't see any comedy in this movie, but
no, yeah, it's more heartfelt that moment. Yes, it's like more sweet than it is comedic.
I mean, maybe because I've seen it so many times, I just see a very sad and somber movie about a man trying to help these people. So I don't see any comedy in this fight. I mean, when he's trying to teach DeVito the poker, and he's like, these are real people. This is a real game we're playing. Like, there's funny interactions he has with people that make me laugh. But no, I don't. No. I also saw The Killer by David Fincher, and a lot of people I know think that's a comedy, so maybe my barometer for laughs has gone down because I'm like, I don't find any of this fucking thing funny, so I don't know.
Very weird. All right, back to the movie. So we've talked about it as sort of a Jesus piece, but I feel like the other sort of fairly obvious interpretation of this movie is, well, maybe not even an interpretation, but just like the other like major thematic element of this movie is the rebellious nature of the McMurphy character, of a character who is a free thinker, and sort of how that plays with the cultural counter or the counterculture revolution of like the 60s that's then sort of bled into the 70s, that fits within the time period when Ken Kesey or Casey, how do you pronounce his last name? Kesey originally wrote One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and then in 75 when this movie came out. How do you sort of like, what do you make of that whole thematic element to the movie, and the story, just like what Nurse Ratched sort of represents, what the institution itself represents, and then kind of how McMurphy comes in to be a disruptor, force of chaos, an agent of chaos within that whole system, and really like shaking things up to sort of try to democratize what's happening there and shake up that system. Like, what are your thoughts on all that?
The movie paints a very clear picture that regimented schedules, the quote unquote order that she's trying to maintain, it breaks down the individual to the point where they're no longer an individual, because that's what they are trying to do. We do this now, and we do this now, and then now you take your pills, and now you sit there and shut the fuck up. You don't talk anymore. Like, boom, 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 boom. And then when you hear this and you see this, and then you go all the way back to Metropolis, and he does the not montage, but the scene where you see the workers walk into the factory and they walk out, and you just see the parallel he's trying to make as these are just factory drones. He was making that point in the 20s that when you break people down to this person does this at this time, then that's why the 60s rebelled so hard. It was like, man, we just want to break away from the system. Can we go back to nature? Can we be human beings again? Like, it became, which is weird that they fought back against the 50s, which felt like, I mean, not for women, but it didn't feel like the most oppressed. Well, never mind. Cut that. I'm going to say the most oppressive time. I forgot other people than white people existed for a second, because I'm like, it wasn't great for everyone else, but the 60s rebelled against that system of what felt like oppression, because I work at a warehouse, and it feels like you're a cog in a machine, and that's how these people feel in this movie. And it's the analogy, metaphor, whatever you want to call it, works better when it's factory workers, because you literally can draw the parallel because they are cogs in a machine. But it also works here when you see these people and how rigid their system is. It's. I
feel like you bring up an interesting. Bring up an interesting point with the orderlies, and how sort of everyone is like part of this same system in different ways. Like, the orderlies are, beholden to this system the same way that the patients are, in a sense, the same way that Nurse Ratched is, like, as much as she, sort of delights in upholding said system, she is still a part of it in the same way that, and she is also stripped of her humanity the same way that the patients are, again, the same way that the orderlies are. So it is kind of interesting that, like, McMurphy is the only one throughout that entire group who is trying to, bring more levels of humanity to everyone involved. Because I think in some ways he is trying to bring some humanity to the orderlies, and other sort of folks who are working within is institution, like, is that the right terminology?
I would say institute, yeah.
Right?
Okay, because it's not asylum. We don't call it that anymore.
Asylums are no bueno. I don't know what the right verbiage is.
I feel like I believe.
I feel like every word is offensive, So we'll stick with institution. But yeah, he's the only one who's trying to bring that humanity to everyone. And I think he wants it for all of the people there, not just, his other patients and friends that he's made. in those, in that group.
Yeah, he's locked up with the rest of them, but he represents freedom. There's a reason why the first time we see Ratchet, it's behind a door that's the glass is framed in a way that it looks like she's behind bars. Because she is also an inmate of this quote unquote prison. It is meant to look like she is also a prisoner here. They're all prisoners here. He's the only one that's free. Because he doesn't take the pills. And he's not following this fucking system. And he's trying to break it down. And he's like, the only way, and he's trying to make the case that it's like, these are the rules that have made you guys crazy. You're not crazy. But this has made you crazy. These pills are making you crazy. I mean, he's wrong in a certain sense because they are crazy. Come on, McMurphy. They are crazy. Yeah. Martini is crazy. You can't leave him alone. You can't give him a fork because he's going to put it in a wall socket. He's going to kill himself accidentally.
Do you think he's more like schizophrenic, or do you think there is, I don't know, I feel like with that character in particular, it sort of blurs the lines between someone who is actually suffering from like a mental disability as opposed to someone who is like mentally ill. If that sort of distinction makes sense. And I feel like characters like Martini and like who Danny DeVito plays, and then I think Tabor is who Christopher Lloyd plays. Like those characters, there's a bit of uncertainty of like where they fall on either side of that line, which I feel like is a pretty interesting comment just about like how folks who were sent to institutions, in the mid 60s, like just like how they were treated and like our lack of understanding about like how to properly help these populations. I feel like those two characters in particular are like a really interesting look at that.
You can make, I think some of them are crazy. I don't want to use the word crazy because I'll get canceled. They have more mental illnesses. Is that good? I don't know.
I think we can go mental illness versus mental disability. I feel like that's.
I'm trying to be nice because I don't know the terminology.
Yeah.
I think some of them like Billy, right? That's his name. The Brad Dourif character. He is mentally ill, but he's not crazy. Martini's closer to, and I'm using the movie terminology. Martini is closer to quote unquote crazy than Billy is, but it does kind of take a little bit of the whole "you guys aren't crazy" out of it. When, come on, he's crazy. he's a little bit crazy, but what he's saying is you could be free. You could live a life where you don't need to be behind these walls. You just need freedom. You need help. And not this help. This isn't help. This isn't helping you. You just need to be reminded that you are human beings again. And that's all he's trying to teach these people is like, you are human beings. You're more than just this. And Samson is the one that just keys into it. He's like, I am more than this. And
yeah. I think Samson, that's the really interesting sort of like humanistic sort of quality to the movie is the difference in opinions of like what is most beneficial to these populations, like these characters in particular that we're watching the movie. Like, is it better for them to go on fishing trips and like go to a bar to watch the World Series? Or is it more beneficial for them to be like confined within these walls of this, of this institution to like maybe go to the pool one day or like play basketball on a court that is surrounded by fences with like barbed wire at the top? Like, what is actually more beneficial to them? What will allow them to live their like the fullest versions of their lives? Or if they do live a life that is, totally free, will they then be a detriment to society at large? Which, like, when they go fishing, I feel like the fishing scene is like the big set piece in this movie. There are moments in it where you're like, oh, like this is why these guys can't be allowed out to do anything because they can't steer the boat, or like if they actually do catch a fish, like they need a ton of help to reel it in. But at the end of the day, like, they make it back. No one is seriously injured. They have the fish. So even though there are some bumps along the way when they go on that fishing trip, it is still an overall positive experience for them, more so than sitting around and being part of another one of, Nurse Ratchet's, group counseling sessions where they talk about, wives and girlfriends and how shitty, the world has been to them. Like, the fishing trip is an overall positive experience.
Mm-hmm. If you view them all as like golden retrievers, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you see them all as, because I look at dogs the same way I do with this is why there's some more hate mail coming your way. I'm not a dog person. I love dogs. Everyone loves dogs. I love a corgi.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone loves dogs. But I will always pick cats over dogs because cats are independent. They're teenagers, and I can deal with a teenager. Yes, teenagers are assholes, but I can deal with them because I know if I leave a teenager at my house, they're not going to burn it down to the ground. A dog is like a child. You have to watch it all the time, and you can't leave it alone because it doesn't understand the concept of time. So you gone for 5 minutes, might as well be 5 hours. So it's going to tear out your couch. You can piss all over the floor. It's going to kill itself with anxiety. But everyone loves dogs, and they all have dogs. You just got to watch them. And it's kind of the same way with Martini and the rest of them. You have to watch them. Just take them out for walks every now and again. They got to go out for walks. If you keep them cooped up, it's no good. You can't keep a dog in a cage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can't keep a dog in a cage. Yes, you can't keep it by itself because it can't handle it. But you got to take it out for walks, everyone. You got to take Martini out with the hookers and the fish. You just can't leave them. But you also can't let Airbud drive the boat. I'm just saying. There's a reason why they never made any fucking Airbud movie where he's in charge of a vehicle. That's all I'm saying.
Airbud NASCAR. That would be a fun one.
I'm waiting for the Airbud Fast and the Furious crossover. I've been waiting for it.
I'd love that.
Know. It's all about family.
Do you make anything of the makeup of the people who are being held within the institution, so like the actual patients versus the people who are working there, so the orderlies and the nurses? Because I feel like it's like pretty clear, groups who occupy each group. Like, all of the nurses are women, all of the orderlies are black guys, all of the patients with the exception of Chief are white guys. Also interesting that Chief is the only one to escape at the end, and all of the white guys sort of stay behind. I was reading, like I said, I tried to do some research for before these episodes, and this one guy who I want to give a shout out to, Roy Lotz, he was doing more of a breakdown of the book, but I feel like he brought up some interesting points in that, because of that makeup of like the different groups where the patients who are the ones being oppressed in this case, he says, in a bizarre mirror of real life, the white men are being oppressed by black people and women. And then he goes on to say, not to be too Freudian, but Nurse Ratchet is the embodiment of the castration complex. She's a joyless, sexless woman intent on castrating all the men, which I feel like is like definitely, if you like want to take like a deep analytical dive into this movie, you certainly can pick up on a lot of those themes. I wasn't necessarily all the way there on all of those, but like I was picking up on them a little bit. I don't think it was really the intention of Foreman at all to like explore any of those things, but I did think it was kind of interesting, thing of note. I don't know if you have any thoughts on any of that, or if you think it's really like a big factor in how you read the movie personally, or, could see someone else reading the movie.
I love interpretations of things, even if they're crazy. I love that people read into things. I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent, but it's going to tie into it. That documentary, Room 237, about The Shining. I don't, because I think there's only the movie. There's so many good. There's only two good, and this is a Jack Nicholson movie, so I guess it ties into the conversation. There's only two good theories presented in this movie. The rest of them are bug nuts insane. So it's at the point where I'm like, well, is the documentarian trying to shine a light on how crazy film analysis is, or is he just showing how varied it can be? Because only two, there's some of them. It's like that's such a fucking stretch.
Yeah.
Yes, Kubrick is a master, but he's like, no,
It's not a secret about. It's not a movie about how he secretly filmed the moon landing. That is my favorite of the crazy theories.
Yeah, I actually don't mind that one, but it's like there's literally a scene where a guy points to a scene where Jack Nicholson and this binder on the table line up, and he's like, "That's clearly a hard-on." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? What are we What are we talking about? What are we talking about here, guy? Like, it's insanity." But so when I hear
that guy needs to be in an institution.
Yes, there are reviewers on Letterboxd, and I'm not going to name names because I actually do follow them, and I like reading their in-depth analysis on certain movies. Where I'm like, "That's your interpretation of this? This is what you got from this?"
At Rapstit. That's the name, right? That's the name of the kook who's reading too deep into movies.
I want to say her name is Sarah Jane Black. I could be wrong. I'm going to
bleep that out.
Well, I don't. I'm not saying she. I'm following her for a reason. I enjoy her write-ups. I don't agree with any of them. Mm-hmm. I don't agree with any of them, but they are well written, and clearly she's coming from a point she sees something in the movies that she chooses to write about that she's grabbing onto. And I'm like, well, I didn't get that at all, but God bless you for getting that. But I love that. I love that engagement people have with movies, even if it's insane. And yes, I'm going to say a lot of her interpretations are insane, but I love them because it's not just, oh, I don't like this because of this. It's she writes. She's very much a critic. I don't know if she's getting paid. I don't know where else I don't know if she gets paid somewhere else. I don't know, but these are well written, and they come from a place of, So when I read about, I honestly think I think Milos Forman just went to a lot of institutions and he just took notes and he saw that this is what they wear. He saw that most of the orderlies were probably black men. He saw that there was a lot of women there. I think that's what he just did. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but I don't think that he was making any statement. I mean, the movie is deep, as like we already illustrated, but I don't think it has. It's not an 8-layer bean dip. There's not that.
I haven't read the book, and I think what this person Roy Lotz was saying was more so an interpretation of what the book is about, because there are way more. He was saying that there are way more like context clues for this kind of reading within the novel that are sort of like stripped away from the movie, just because, again, like Milos Forman was a Czech director. This was the second movie that he made in America. So I don't know if he necessarily if he had sort of the background knowledge to make a movie about the interplay between, American white men and Native Americans and American black men and like white women, and sort of how they all interact with each other within, under the same roof. That's not like the kind of film that he would be able to make, but because it is coming from the source material where that may be more, prevalent. It just is like kind of there in the background, but not necessarily something that was like super intentional. But I do think, like my big reading is that it's really just like McMurphy is just trying to let the boys be boys. That is his way of liberating. He wants them to watch the ball game. He takes them fishing. He brings prostitutes for them to like drink booze with and have sex with, like, you know, mostly like pretty harmless boys will be boys kinds of things. What he's in jail for is like a pretty harmful boys will be boys kind of thing, but everything else that he like brings to the other patients is fairly innocent in that regard.
I agree wholeheartedly. But yeah, he might have, he might have been a master and he might have put that in there. But like you said, I don't remember those context clues being in the book, so they might be there. Mm-hmm. I mean, the book was written at a time where that would make more sense for him to be hitting multiple themes at once. I don't think the movie had time to hit all of these themes. But,
no.
I mean, again, I love an interpretation, even if it's wild. Like the castration of men, though, that's interesting. All right.
That's the beauty of art is, again, you can sit 5 different people down in the same room, have them watch this movie together, and you can easily have 5 very different interpretations of this movie. You can have someone thinking it's a comedy. You can have someone thinking it's a Jesus story. You can have someone thinking it's about Soviet occupation. You can have someone thinking it's about the relationship between, you know, the cowboy and the Native American in the last frontier of the American West. Or you'd have someone just think like it's a movie about how awful mental institutions are to the people who, you know, are forced or, you know, committed or voluntarily there. It's why we love movies, because you can have these different interpretations. You can have these conversations where you dig in and dive and talk about all those things. And, you know, for that, among many other reasons, you know, that's why One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is an essential movie. It's why it's in the canon. It's why we love it. It's why it's one of Sailor's favorite movies. It's why it's a pivotal movie for you in your movie watching career, lifetime, whatever it may be. So Sailor, thank you again for joining me, for helping me kick off season 3, for helping us kick off 2024 here on the Canon. This has been great. Do you have any final words on One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest before we get into our recommendations?
Not about the movie. Well, I can save it. I'll table it. So, no, I think I've said my piece, because I do have something that ties into a thing I'm about to ask. I was gonna put you in the hot seat and ask you which movie do you prefer, this one or Amadeus?
Which one do I prefer?
This movie or Amadeus? Yes.
I think Amadeus gets a slight edge for me.
I mean, I think they're both perfect movies, so yeah.
I think they're both wonderful.
That's all I wanted to know. I mean, I'm gonna bring back Milos Forman in a second.
You're not gonna recommend Amadeus, though.
No, I'm not. I mean, it's already in the canon, so I think that's against the rules.
I didn't realize it was in the canon. I have no idea. You know, before we get into recommendations, I know you brought this up earlier. You briefly touched on it, but I just wanted to bring it back because I was thinking about recommending it when we were talking about doing this episode. You know, you mentioned just watch it through the prism of he's a Jesus figure. So I'm watching it with that in mind, and I could not stop thinking about The Last Temptation of Christ, because I think, like you said, even though McMurphy is a Jesus figure, he is a very flawed human version of Jesus, which is very similar to the way that, you know, that character is portrayed in The Last Temptation of Christ. So thank you for bringing that up. I'm not going to recommend it, but just wanted to mention that. So let's jump in to our recos. Sailor, you know the rules. I know the rules. There might be some new listeners out there, so just in case, we will go through the rules of recommendations. For each movie that we introduce into the canon, we each recommend 3 things. One has to be a movie. The other 2 things, they can be anything else. They can be more movies. It could be a TV show, an episode of a TV show, a book, a comic book, an album, an artist, a painter, a piece of painting, whatever. We like to get really weird. The only thing we ask is that if you're recommending movies, they're not movies. They're already in the canon. So like Sailor said, Amadeus. May or may not be in the canon, so we're not going to recommend that. But with all that being said, Sailor, let's jump in. You'll go first. Give us your first recommendation for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
I am actually recommending a Milos Forman movie. It is not Amadeus, though. But before I recommend it, I wonder why he dropped off so hard and so suddenly. Because from 1960 to 1970, he had like 10 movies. He was banging them out. And then he came to America, did One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, right, 1975. And then 4 years later with Hair. Then Ragtime, Amadeus. Then he did Valmont, which I've never seen. But that was a 5-year gap between Amadeus and Valmont. And then almost a 10-year gap between that and The People vs. Larry Flint. Then he does Man on the Moon. And then almost, again, 10 years. And he does Goya's Ghosts. Then A Walk Worthwhile, which I've never even heard of, which is his last movie in 2009. And then he dies 9 years later. He feels like a director that should have 100 movies based off of the quality of all of the... I haven't seen all of his movies, but all of the movies I've seen are damn near perfect movies. Or at least flawed masterpieces, because I even like Goya's Ghosts. I know a lot of people haven't seen that one, but I think it's a flawed... I'm not going to say flawed masterpiece, but I think it's a really, really good movie. But I love People vs. Larry Flint. I love Man on the Moon. And if you love Amadeus and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, I implore you to go a little bit further back in his filmography to 1967 to The Fireman's Ball. Now, there's a reason why I brought up Animal House, because I was planting the seed. Sailor's a smart little boy. Fireman's Ball is basically Animal House, but in a fire department. The plot involves a volunteer fire department throwing a party for the former boss with the whole town invited, and nothing goes according to plan. Now, unlike Animal House, which I love deeply, this actually has some commentary to it because it's criticizing decadent society and communist regimes at the same time. So not only is it a hilarious comedy that a lot of people have not seen, well, at least in America, because it's a huge hit over there. But it also has a lot going on under the surface, just like most of his movies. So, The Fireman's Ball, and going back to Poor Things, this is one of Emma Stone's 5 favorite movies. So,
nice.
If you love Emma Stone and you love Milos Forman, you gotta check out The Fireman's Ball, which is readily available. Criterion had a DVD of it. I don't know if they ever put it out on Blu-ray, but you can find it.
Nice. Yeah, that's
a great movie.
That's certainly in the watch list.
I mean, it's not American. You have to get accustomed to that type of comedy because foreign comedy, you know.
Yeah.
A lot of the physical humor anyone can get. So
yeah, a lot of physical humor has no borders, as they say. It's a universal language. Sweet. Okay. All right. So for my first recommendation, I'm going to go with a movie that is surprisingly not in the canon. I feel like you might be surprised when you hear that this one isn't in the canon. But I'm going to go with another Jack Nicholson movie. I feel like, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, along with this other movie, really like skyrocketed him into like a level of superstardom that not many actors reach. Like we didn't really talk about it this episode, but like he is, a generational type of actor. And one of the things that I love about Nicholson is that in all of his performances, he simultaneously like gets really lost in the character and like the character is fully realized, but is also still just Jack Nicholson. And like, I feel like no one toes that line better than him. Like Christopher Walken comes to mind, but like he at many times just becomes like a full caricature of himself. De Niro can go really either way, but I feel like Nicholson, Nick Cage, where he can also, really just like get lost in a character or just fully be Nick Cage. But like Nicholson in pretty much every movie that he's in is able to do both simultaneously in a way that like I don't think really anyone else can. So the other movie that I'm going to recommend, and it's a shame that the director is a creep and an awful person, but I'm going to recommend Chinatown because it's still an awesome movie, no matter how much of a scumbag Roman Polanski is. Because it's an amazing movie. Nicholson is delightful in it, and I'm very surprised that it's not in the canon.
What?
You're not a fan?
No, I'm mad that it's not in the canon.
Uh,
I told this is just for the people listening that frequent the site. I told Duke anything after the 80s, just let me be in charge of because y'all are gonna fuck it up. I told him the fact that
or anything before the 80s.
Yeah, that's what I meant. And yeah, anything before the 80s because I'm like I know this is where y'all's cinema acumen drops off. I get it. I know, but the fact that Chinatown. Who wrote the book on film writing? Oh shit! Not William Goldman. The other one, Robert Town. I can't remember. I can't remember. There was a book
the
on
dude who wrote Alien.
probably. I can't
I
remember. So, but there's one of the best one of the best books on writing, and they constantly put up Chinatown as an example of the perfect script. And it's hard for me to disagree. It is a perfectly written movie. I have flaws in the execution. I don't think it's but it is a perfectly written movie with amazing performances. John Huston is incredible. The twist is insane. Like the noir story. You also have to be a fan of film noir because it's a lot of red herrings and a lot of people talking to people. But once all of the things start clicking into place, you're like, oh my God, everything meant something. And oh God, it's so good. Also, don't recommend the sequel. So, did you know there was a sequel to Chinatown? Oh yeah, okay. I guess you did.
I did, and I have no interest in watching it ever.
Yeah, Jack Nicholson's like, I can make the sequel, right? And I'm like, all right, Jack, whatever you want.
Whatever you want. You're Jack Nicholson.
It's not unwatchable. You just got to pretend it's not.
Yeah. It's no anger management.
It sure isn't. It really isn't. It really isn't. He is much better. God damn it. He is much better in anger management than he is in the movie he directed himself in. And then ain't that some shit?
Yeah, I don't know what to do with that. Give us your second recommendation.
I sure will.
We'll
All
do
right.
that.
So I was going to be a troll and say, well, if this is a movie about Jesus, I'm going to pick the best movie about Jesus. And I was going to tee it up to make it seem like I was going to pick Last Temptation of Christ and then pull a switcheroo and pick RoboCop. But I'm not a troll. I'm not picking RoboCop, even though RoboCop's great. And it probably is
Jesus movie.
But Chinatown isn't. But instead...
Yeah, it probably is.
Hey, no, that is not diss on RoboCop. It is also a perfect movie. If I'm talking about Jesus, well, that makes me think of heaven. So the best movie about heaven, in my opinion, is the 1998 movie Afterlife. Well, actually, that's not true. That's not my favorite movie about heaven. That's the Albert Brooks movie, Defending Your Life. We're not talking about that one. I should have picked that one. But we're going to talk about Afterlife instead, which
Let's love. I'm not familiar with this movie.
After death, people have a week to choose only one memory to keep for an eternity.
Dang.
So this movie has this person. It's an Asian movie. It's a foreign movie. And it's a dude working for a company. It's a social service in the afterlife. So it's not exactly heaven per se, but it's an afterlife. And there's a social service worker who talks to people. And that's what makes up the movie. Is a guy, and they recreate the memory. So they take the memory and then they give it to you like, oh, I remember sitting at the park with Jenny holding her hand and just thinking about the future. And that's my favorite memory. And then they like construct a set of and stuff. Now, in your mind, you're like, holy shit, this is the best movie I've ever heard of. Like, because that sounds amazing. There's not that much of that in the movie. It is a lot of just people talking to people. And those conversations are, a lot of them aren't scripted. They're just impromptu. And the people, from
Nice.
my understanding, I could be wrong. I don't even think they're actors. I think they just built a movie around interviews with people asking them, what is your
Mm-hmm.
favorite memory? And then they
I
kind
love
of
that.
constructed a movie around that. So it is a movie. It's kind of like the movie
Mm-hmm.
Under the Skin, where a lot of the
Mm,
people Scarlett Johansson picks
that
up
is in the canon.
aren't actors. I'm not recommending it, but aren't actors. They were just people, and they had no idea it was kind of a movie about an alien. It was
Yeah,
just
just random Scottish guys.
yeah. They were like, "Oh, this is a prostitute. I'm gonna try to get mine." Right, and so they kind of built it around that. Or Waltz with Bashir, which is an animated movie built out of
Mm-hmm.
real stories from people who fought in this war. So they grafted on a story built on those stories. Afterlife is similar to that, but it's also very whimsical. It's very fun. If you've ever watched the show Dead Like Me, it's kind of like that, but in a very Asian way. I think it's a delightful movie. Criterion just released it, so this is two Criterion movies back to back,
Nice.
and I think both of them are very underseen.
I love
And
that. Everyone's gonna add movies to their Criterion watch list or wish list, and then when that next sale hits, load them up, people. Load them
get
up.
them.
Afterlife, Fireman's Ball, boom, boom, boom. Get it done.
My next one is not in the Criterion, and it sure as hell ain't in the canon. But you're up next.
No. Last Temptation of Christ also available for purchase as a Blu-ray from the Criterion Collection, although not a recommendation. My next recommendation also won't be available for purchase from the Criterion Collection, but probably is available to purchase as a Blu-ray in some form. I'm going to recommend an episode of a TV show, one of my favorite TV shows. The through lines are extremely obvious, and I couldn't not recommend this. So I'm going to recommend season 4, episode 10 of Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which ends with an homage to the ending of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, obviously with Danny DeVito getting his breakout role in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and then going on to be the big name star in Always Sunny after a amazing career that spanned decades, and sort of just like he's doing like his last hurrah. He's taking like his victory lap, just being on that show, which in my opinion has been amazing for all of the 15 years or whatever that it's been on TV.
And isn't
So
that
I'm going to
insane?
recommend. Yeah, it's like the longest running like live action sitcom in TV history.
And it's
Been
good.
on for like
And it's
15
still
episodes.
fucking
Yeah,
good.
it's still funny. They
The
they
last
have the
couple
juice.
seasons are shaky, but the good still outweighs the bad.
Yeah, for
The
sure.
season where they go
It
to
could hit.
Ireland, not the best, but there's that episode where
There's still some
Charlie.
good episodes. Yeah.
It's good. Now the episode you're referencing, this is not the one with Mac in prison doing the dance, right?
No, that's a later season.
Okay.
This
God,
is
I love that episode.
sorry. I don't know if I said the name of the episode. It's Sweet D has a heart attack.
Okay, there we go. Now I know.
Yeah.
When you should
So I
give me
think
the
she get.
a season in the episode, that doesn't help me. Sweet D gets a heart attack.
Yeah. Yeah. Hilarious episode. So I think D, she has a heart attack, and then her and Dennis start going to the gym. For some reason, Frank ends up. I think because he's like wandering around town, so he ends up in a mental institution. Will Sampson, who played Chief, his son plays a Chief like character in this episode, and then at the end, he picks up the watering fountain and he throws it through the window, and him and Frank escape and run through the streets of Philadelphia. It's just like it's not my favorite episode of the show, but like because it does have that direct homage to the movie, like that's why I'm recommending it. But I freaking love Always Sunny, man. It's so good. It's so
I
good.
can't believe before the mics came on, I recommended an episode of a show that had the exact same premise, and I totally forgot about it. Sonny did it too. Space got first.
When you were talking about it, I was like, do I mention to him now that I'm going to be recommending this Always Sunny episode, or do I just save it?
They even
And
got
I
his
decided to
son
save it.
again. I didn't even connect those dots. I didn't even connect.
So
Goddamn.
good.
Oh, that's not my recommendation, but yes, Spaced. If you
Yeah.
guys, yeah, also has the exact same.
The
Just
exact
doesn't have
same.
Danny
Yeah.
DeVito.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you could kind of call Nick Frost the English Danny DeVito, but I don't think anyone would.
I don't know if I would, but
Nah, no
okay.
one would. All right. This is the most obvious shit, and I pray to God that you don't have it, but I don't think our brains work the same way. So
I don't think so. In
all
some
right,
ways they do, but in many ways they do not.
no, because I'm an insane person. All right, so if this is a movie about Jack Nicholson as Jesus, I think the most appropriate follow up would be a movie where Jack Nicholson plays the devil. That's right. I'm recommending Witches of Eastwick, where you have three witches, as it were, played by Cher, Susan Sarandon, and Michelle Pfeiffer, fucking with Jack Nicholson. And it's delightful. And it's directed by the dude who did Mad Max, George Miller, who's always great. So if you guys have never seen it, it's Jack Nicholson as the devil who has sex with every woman in town and fucks them over, and they're like, we got to get this motherfucker, and they just team up and use their witchy powers. They just create as much pain and misery on poor Jack Nicholson, and it's so much fun. It's great watching, because I love serious Jack Nicholson. I think he's top 5 best actors of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's everything I want Marlon Brando to be, which is that effortless. Because I do think Marlon Brando is a great actor. Don't get me wrong. That effortless quality of an actor, where it's like, God damn, you are amazing. Without even where it feels like he's not even trying, but he's making all of the moves. But I just love when he's fun. I do love him in that Adam Sandler movie. I don't like that movie, but I think he's really, really fun in that movie. And this is one of his funnest roles. I
kind of wish he did a little bit more of that.
Yeah, he's retired now, so we're never going to get it unless a Tarantino can get him out of retirement for his last movie, which I doubt. But I don't think anyone. I think this is it. So we're not going to get any more funny Jack, unfortunately.
No,
so
I think the most fun he's ever had was The Departed. God, is he having fun in that movie?
Oh, and he's again. We're talking about not even trying. I don't know what Boston accent he's doing, but it ain't Boston. God bless him. Because a lot of my family is from Boston, and they're like, I don't know what the fuck that is. I don't know. Mark is doing it because he's from Boston. Matt's doing it. DiCaprio's trying. Nope.
Sheen is trying. Yeah, Nicholson is just.
He's got it down pat. Nicholson's like, yeah, rat. It's amazing. And you're like, I don't even get.
You gonna stop doing coke deals with your jerk off cousin?
It's to me, it's like Joe Pesci in Goodfellas, where you're supposed to believe he's like 21 years old. All right, whatever. I can suspend disbelief that he's a 21-year-old in this. Whatever. And De Niro is like 26. Okay,
he's like 25. Yeah, sure, whatever.
I don't give a shit. Whatever. Nicholson. All right, you're from Boston. Whatever. I'm fine with this. I don't give a shit. So. But Witches of Eastwick is kind of similar. Right? Like, I don't know what the fuck this performance is. I don't know what this devil is, but I love it. It's great. It's one of my favorites.
He's having a good time.
So
love it. Good pick. I gotta add that to the watch list as well. So
watch my first movies first, please, and then watch Witches,
and then I'll watch this. Yeah,
it's not an essential, but it's a fun.
But it's great. It's still fun. So our brains were not super aligned in that regard. I'm not recommending the same movie. I'm going to go with a slightly different route. We didn't talk about it much, but this movie, one of the few great movies that are set in Oregon or Oregon. I don't know. I feel like there's like an East Coast, West Coast debate about how to pronounce it. And I think because I'm from the East Coast, I say it incorrectly. So I think Oregon is not the right way to say it. Whatever. I'm sorry to all of the
fuck Oregon. I'm a mispronounce even harder. Oregon. Fuck them.
Oregon. Yeah. Sorry if I'm offending any of our Oregonite
I'm just trying to
listeners
get
out
you
there.
to get some more hate mail. That's all I'm trying.
You're just looking for the hate. That's your main goal right now is just for me to get hate mail.
Well, I also
Keeping the
just want
postal
to
service
share.
alive. We need Newman to be working. So I'm going to recommend another great Oregon movie. From a movie from the past couple of years, a movie that I really, really, really dug. I feel like this is probably a movie that you dig as well, but I'm going to recommend Pig, another great Oregon movie. Very different.
The Cage movie?
The Cage movie.
Yes.
A lot of fun. A really amazing, like one of Cage's best performances. Really, like the whole movie subverts expectations in a way that is super, super great. It's just like I can't recommend it enough. A revenge movie about Nick Cage who owns a truffle pig that gets stolen, and he goes on a revenge tour to get the pig back. And it's amazing. It's like Nick Cage at his best. So that's my final pick. Another movie set in Oregon, with one of our favorite actors. You know, we love Cage, we love Nicholson. We love watching them do
I
their thing.
love
Yeah.
Nicolas Cage, and I think he's amazing in this movie. And like you said, it subverts expectations because when you say a revenge movie about a dude trying to get his truffle pig, and you see the trailers, you think it's going to be John Wick with Cage, and I'm so glad. Which I would have been down for. I would have been down for, but I'm so glad it's not that, and that it's an inverse of the action movie, kind of like that Joaquin Phoenix movie with the title that you were never
really there or something.
Yeah, I can't stand the title because it's awful. But it also subverts what you think an action revenge movie is going to be. And it's just a thoughtful, contemplative movie about revenge. With the quote that you're going to take away from more than the action, we don't get a lot of things to really care about. That's the thesis of the movie. It's not how many guys can I kill because you wronged me. It's I didn't have anything and you took it from me. And I'm sad about it. And it's beautiful, I think. And Cage, like we were saying, is an actor that goes over the top to the point where he has become a meme of himself. But when I'm not going to say when he tries, because he's always given something. When he has material he can actually sink his teeth in, and he doesn't have to rely on that Cage rage that we all love. He is, I think he's the best actor working, because Nicholson ain't working no more. I think he is the best actor working today, because you can never expect or predict what he's going to do next. This year or 2023 alone, you have one of his best performances in Dream Scenario, and then you have Sympathy with the Devil, where you're like, oh, there's more Nicolas Cage coming at you. And then right before that, he fought animatronics in a Five Nights at Freddy's ripoff. So you're like, I don't know what flavor of Cage I'm going to get from movie to movie, but it's always delightful. But when he's really good, there's no one better. And goddamn, it's a Cage. So I can't recommend that one. So that's a double recommend. 2 thumbs up. See that before Facebook, everybody.
Love that.
But then just because Cher is hot in it.
Love hot Cher. All right. Before we get out of here, Sailor, let's run through the recommendations one last time. Give us your list. 1, 2, 3. Boom, boom, boom.
Fireman's Ball, Afterlife, Witches of Eastwick.
And I've got Chinatown, also starring Jack Nicholson. I've got Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Season 4, Episode 10, Sweet D Has a Heart Attack. Ending is a direct homage to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And I've got Pig, the great Nicolas Cage movie, another great movie set in Oregon with another one of our favorite actors. Sailor, we did it. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. We talked about it. We've inducted it officially into the canon. It is an essential movie. We got through our New Year resolutions. We kicked off season 3. We're so back. The canon is so back, and I cannot thank you enough for joining me for this first episode. Sorry,
you didn't use the.
Oh,
there.
You know, that's another one of my resolutions. Another one of my resolutions for this year is to make better use of the soundboard.
Yeah.
So we're going to add more sound effects and stuff this season, I promise. but
Oh,
sometimes, I just get so wrapped up in the conversation. You were just giving me so many good juicy tidbits about this movie that I couldn't even think to,
well, let me
drop.
help you out, Ralph. You know what else I want to do on my New Year's resolution? Play
Let's hear
more
it.
hockey.
I'm not wearing hockey pads.
There you go, my man. There it is.
Nice. I love it. Yeah, Sailor, thank you again. So next week on the Canon, Dahlgren will be joining me to talk about Stalker. We're very excited for that. This month at Screen Age Wasteland, there's a ton of great content. We'll be dropping the Screen Age Wasteland awards, the annual awards that we do. That is, I think Duke calls it way better than the Oscars. That will be dropping at the end of this month. You'll be getting a bunch of write-ups for people's favorite movies of 2023. Most people do 5 favorite movies. I usually do 10, and Sailor will do a full year in review. So be on the lookout for those. There's a ton of other great stuff going on the website. I think Sailor and Duke have Total Recast podcast coming back at some point, early this year. So a lot of great stuff. Check us out over there. We're going to be pumping out a whole lot of different things, articles, write-ups, podcasts, all that good stuff. So please come and join us over there. Sailor, anything that you want to add on that front?
No, let's just keep out this entire month of January on Screen Age Wasteland. Every contributor is going to do, like you said, a top 10 list or top 5 list of their favorite movies of the year. Like, I am going to review every movie I watched that year. That was a 2023 release, so 70 write-ups. I'm also going to do a list of my 25 most anticipated movies of this year, 2024, that I keep changing
Nice.
because that's why I brought it up earlier, is I didn't know that this year is the year we finally get a release of The Day the Clown Cried, the Jerry Lewis movie that has been in the
Oh,
vault since 1972 because he's like, oh, I'm sorry, this is awful. No one should ever see this. But he said, like 10 years after he died, y'all can release it or whatever the hell it was in the stipulation. But it's finally coming out this year, and it is bumping the new Tarantino, the new Coen brothers, the new George Miller. This is my most anticipated movie because I cannot wait to peep this train wreck. I cannot wait. I've been waiting for, like, the Other Side of the Wind, that Orson Welles movie that he never finished, that finally came out. That one wasn't worth it either. So I can't. The Terry Gilliam movie, the Don Quixote thing, the man who killed Don Quixote, the thing he was always chasing, and then he finally made it. Not worth it. I know it's not going to be worth it. I know it's going to be trash, but I can't fucking wait. So
I love it.
2024, can't wait.
Be on the lookout for that and everything else that Sailor mentioned. And we'll see you next week. We'll be back for Stalker. And in the meantime, all you screenagers out there, stay safe, stay awesome, and we will see you in the wasteland.